Okay, so it'll give you a little notification that I'm recording. Alrighty, let's get started. I'm so excited to see your guys' faces. And for this reason of our Untamed book. Like, I hope you guys are loving it as much as I am. Um, I recently, let me kind of give you guys a background of how I discovered this book and like how it came into my life so you guys can understand how we got here, really. As most of you guys know, I went through kind of a hardship with my relationship and life and had to kind of totally uproot everything back in March. And it was pretty crazy for me. And I had one of my coaches, Elika, she has a friend, Leslie, who just literally messaged me and was like, "Hey, I don't know what you're going through, but I just read this book that's pretty good. And I think that maybe you should check it out." And she said, the book Untamed. And I was like, okay. I was like literally into anything. So I just literally downloaded the audiobook and started listening to it. And like most of you guys, the prologue, I was like, what? I just, it really struck me. And then as I continued to read it, as I continued to listen to it, I was just like, oh my gosh, more girls need to see this. And so I immediately, like before I even was done with the book, was talking to people about creating a book club, having people join us for like a group read through. And I just knew that it was going to be really special for a lot of people, not only for myself to read it again, but I knew it could be really powerful for a lot of you guys as well. So I'm really happy to have you guys here. That's how I discovered the book. Literally, somebody just recommended it to me and I downloaded it and I just started listening. I just kind of followed my intuition in that sense. A book called Untamed, it sounded like what I needed to read. So what I would love to hear from you guys first, just to kind of maybe get some people talking, is what do you guys think about the name Untamed? What was something that maybe one of you guys were like, or what was your story as to how or why you guys chose to join? Does anybody want to share yet? If not, it's totally fine. But I do want to get us discussing for sure.
I'll share.
Yeah.
Like I put in the chat, Molly, it needs to charge. Okay, you're gonna let it charge for a second?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So Molly gave it to me as the secret, one of the Secret Santa gifts with the bands. And so I had already started reading it. So I had already read it when you mentioned the book and I was like, oh, that's perfect because I already had that book and I've already read it. And it's Untamed, just the title. It's just such a free kind of thing. And then as soon as I read it, I like got not even halfway into it and I started looking for this woman on social media. Like I follow her on Instagram because she is amazing. She's amazing. She did a complete 180, just a complete turnaround with her life. She went from one life that she thought was the only thing possible to something completely different from what she was raised to do. And to break out of all of those social what's the word?
Norm.
Compound, something to break out of that cage like that is really hard to do. To acknowledge some of those things in yourself is really hard to do. To take a long look at your relationship with somebody that you've had for a long time. I mean, I don't remember exactly what in those, I have to look, but like just I resonated with so much of the book, so much of it, and it's wild how much happens to you when you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
How much happens, how much life keeps happening, no matter how much you try to stop it or slow it down, everything happens. It's an amazing book. And I think that even if people don't do a book club, if they don't answer any of the questions, just to read it and to get those words in your head, to plant those seeds like a garden in your head, that's all you need, because flowers will grow. Beautiful flowers will grow, period. You will have just happy thoughts because the woman is happy. The woman is so happy. Her children are happy. Her spouse is happy. It's very freeing. I don't know how else to say that. It kind of made me feel like a hippie for a second. Like it made me feel young again. It really did. It made me I'm gonna stop
Yeah.
talking now. I'm gonna crack up and start crying.
I
So,
love
but
it.
it's a great book. It's
I see heads
amazing.
nodding. No, I loved it too. I think it is freeing is such a good word for like to go along with that untamed. I loved it too. And I followed her. I was about halfway through, and that's when I started to search for her on social media and was like, I need to know, is she putting more out? And she does. So if you guys follow her on Instagram, she is still pumping out content consistently. So that's something that you could continue to get. And I'm just so curious as to like how her story is going to continue to unfold. So also you guys, if you can't like speak up, you could always type in the chat too. You could always pop over there and read in the chat. So if you're like, I don't really want to talk, but I do want to just say I love it or something like that, feel free to pop over into the chat and you can kind of type there and there'll be like a second conversation set up over there. Okay. So let's move on to our next question. So, well, let me actually read what I had wrote down for what does untamed mean for you. I thought of it as like releasing rules and regulations to myself in my life, living freely to do as I wish with my life and my body, embracing my wild heart unapologetically. That's kind of what I had come up with when I was just asking myself, like, what does it mean to me to be untamed? How does it feel to be untamed? What would it look like? I just kind of started to really ask myself these questions and really kind of start to analyze some areas also of where am I tamed? Where have I been conditioned? Where have I been caged? And I hope that you guys have started to really question these things too. Maybe you haven't come up with the answers yet, right? Like maybe you're like, well, I don't know, never even thought about it. And that's totally fine because now, like Amanda said, once that seed is planted, it's only a matter of time before it starts to sprout and grow into something new. So I feel like once you know, you can't unknow, which is the best thing ever. And so once you have learned about the cage, you've learned about all of these things that are placed on us, you can't unknow them. And that's one thing that's always like really kind of awesome about this book is like, I know now it's in your guys' heads. Yeah.
And you can't look at your keepers the same again. The
Yes.
cage keepers. You cannot look at them the same again. You will not see them the same again.
Yeah.
So it's a Pandora's box. It is definitely Pandora's box. But again, the freeing, like it's I can only say the age 15 because that's like the most prominent age, like when you just have all these ideas about what you want to do, what you want to be. Yeah, no, you're right. Sorry, I'll stop.
No, don't you stop. And don't you say sorry. We are not apologizing here. This is what we're here for. Okay. But next I want to talk about, okay, so we've talked about the title. So now let's turn into that first little section. You guys all got to read the prologue about the cheetah that is in this cage and she's looking at it. And as everybody else is just mindlessly watching this little event, she starts to see it differently, right? Like she starts to look at it as, why is this cheetah's life to entertain these humans? And the fact that this cheetah knows nothing else other than this life, isn't that so sad for a second? But then also you're like, then they come around with saying that she like looks off into the wild and like she knows that she's meant for more, but she's like, how can I get there? Like, and it's so crazy when you start to think about it as your life is like, what are the cages around you? Who are the people going, okay, do your tricks, do your things, right? That's what you're supposed to be doing. And are we just chasing a rabbit? I thought that was such a huge, I mean, like it's probably one of the best prologues I've ever read in a book, to be honest. And I've read a ton of books, but it was one of the most influential readings that I've ever had in just a short little reading. I know for me, I even when I was in Wyoming, my friend Missy that I went with, like I played it for her. I was like, she started talking about, didn't know like really where she was in life and didn't really know what she wanted to do next. And I was like, I want to play something for you. I was like, are you in on it? And she was like, yes. And I played the prologue for her. And it was actually like it was something that we continued to reference our entire trip. So she happened to have, like, we were sleeping in a tent for 3 days, and like all the blankets she had happened to be cheetah blankets. Like, what were the odds of that? You know? So we're like sleeping and we have like all these cheetah blankets all over us. And we were just like, we're a goddamn cheetah. Like, and it just kind of was, it kept coming into play. And so it's been something that I've continued in my own mind. I even told you guys, when I saw the Moana again, I looked at it so differently watching it because all these people are trying to tell her, just be happy where you are, be happy with what you have. Why are you trying to go for more? Why? And she's like, it's just in me. Like there's something in me pulling me out to the water. And I'm just thinking in my head, like, you're a goddamn cheetah, Moana, go, go. Even though I know the movie and I know that she does, there's still that sense of like, why are we holding her back? Why? Why are we doing that? And I think of so many women that continue to be held back, and thank God she didn't listen, you know, because she knew. But how many of us do listen to that person telling us, no, you can't do that? Why would you do that? That's so silly. That's so stupid. That's so whatever it is. Why do we allow those people's opinions to be louder than our own? You know? And so I think of it as like, be a cheetah, be Moana, like, who cares what those people say? Keep going and keep pushing. Did anybody else have any kind of like little story or eye-opening experience when they read the cheetah part as well? Chelsea, I think you unmuted. If you go for it, girl.
So I guess like playing along with what you were saying, for me, it's, I feel like I've always been like a people pleaser, like, you know, always trying to please my mom and be like a good kid for her. And I think that when, like, for example, in the Moana movie, because we were watching that this week too, like when it's your parents or someone who you value their opinion, or a loved one who, you know, you respect them and you want to do what they tell you to do, you know, you want to achieve on their level of achievement, it's hard to kind of break out of that and get away from that. So like in Moana's example, her parents were telling her, no, don't go to the water. Like I've had my mom say, no, don't do that, do this instead. And it's definitely taken me down some paths that I don't think I would have chose on my own, you know, on multiple levels. And I think everyone can understand that influence that others have in the decisions that we make for ourselves. And it's kind of eye-opening in that regard, but also kind of scary, like, well, what would I have chose for myself? So that was kind of where I got, you know, with the book and the reading.
I love that. It is so there will be like multiple probably realizations that you'll have in this book that you'll probably kind of you'll have good moments where I've cried listening and reading this book. I have been upset with people or myself or other things. By the end of it, I came super peaceful with it all. So just know that there probably will be plenty of times that you're going to go, oh my gosh, like, why did I allow that? What if, you know, we can go through all of those what ifs of like, what would I have done? What would I have been? What would I, if I wouldn't have listened to them? Or what if I would have chose this instead of this? Because I wouldn't have had that one person's opinion. Absolutely. We could go down that rabbit hole, right? But the only thing that you can do is from now on, you're more aware, right? From now on, you are going to trust yourself. Maybe you can have their opinions or input, but at the end of the day, you have to make a decision that works for you. And that's where you can really start to make that shift now in the difference, right? Is like, okay, I'm not going to do this just because like my mom said I should. I'm going to do this because I get what my mom's coming from, but is that still what I want for myself as well? And you can really start to evaluate and break that all down. And so I love the growth already, girl. Chelsea, appreciate you sharing. I know it's not easy. Especially when we're doing the work, right? We've talked about that before a couple times with some people. Like when you're in the growth, sometimes it can be really ugh. But I encourage you to keep going and keep reading, and eventually you're probably going to come in a really peaceful place. Okay, so now we kind of talked about all of that. So I did post some prompt questions when we were talking in the chat. I'm going to read through them. If you have one that like kind of speaks to you, we'll kind of go through them. But I don't know if we'll have time to go through each and every single one. But the first section, which was like that prologue through those first couple little short stories. So you'll notice the book is filled with short stories. Sorry, my mom's making the air fryer if you guys hear the beeping. Derek needs chicken nuggets. No. um, okay, but so for that first section here, these are the 3 questions that I had. Who were you before the world told you who to be? Right? She talks about that age of 10 years old is when we start to feel those cages being put around us. For me, I feel like I was pretty free until about 13, I think. 13 is when things started to get a little bit more like I started caring about what I was wearing and makeup and hair. And then I kind of went to high school into freshman year around 14, 15. I think that's when I really personally remember really paying attention to Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears and, MTV and what was hot and what was not. And that's when I really feel like I remember being super influenced. But I also do remember like I had an older brother and sister. So when I was younger, I still was trying to be like them. So I think I still grew up faster than I ever should have or would have if I would have been like an only child or something like that, just because I always wanted to hang out with them and their friends. And so that kind of just I reflect back on like, just some of the things that I probably was like watching on MTV and stuff like that. Not that I think it's bad, but it's just that we have to also educate maybe our next generation on like, you can see that, but like you need to decide, is that really what you want to look like? Is that really what makes you feel good? Or are you trying to do that because you think that's what they want? I think that we just have to have that perspective talk with our next generation of, okay, that's fine if that's what you want to do, but make sure you're doing it because that's what you want to do, right? Not because some producer put you on stage and told you to dance like that, or because your dad told you to do that or something like that. It's like teaching our next generation to really trust themselves, I think is really what she's trying to teach us as adults. I don't know if you guys kind of feel like we need to learn to retrust ourselves. We need to learn to listen to our inner voice on what's best for us. And I think that's where she's trying to help us learn it. And then hopefully what we can do is teach our next generation that so they grow up trusting themselves, knowing what they want, knowing what they like, and not doing it because I told him it's right, and I think that could be a different generation growing up. If I could say, well, Derek, well, what do you want to wear? Like sometimes, I mean, I let him wear, like today we went to the park, he want to wear shoes. I said, okay, we're not wearing shoes. Let's go. And I could have been like, no, you have to wear shoes. but did he really? I mean, if he steps on something, he's gonna learn, like, I just think sometimes, like, you have to learn from mistakes sometimes, and we're so um interested in protecting, and I think that's where that cage starts, is I want to keep you safe, I want to keep you protected. Oh, don't go do that. Oh, don't do this, you might get hurt. And that's, I think, that protectiveness that we've done to our kids has also kind of caged them a little bit in keeping them safe. So that was one thing that was kind of interesting to me, is like, when we worry about our kids or things like that, um, I think that we kind of cage them when we don't allow them to make their own decisions and trust themselves to figure it out. That was kind of a tangent. I didn't really answer the question, but I just went off on that. So, who were you before the world told you who to be, is number one. Number two is, what cages are you in right now? Those you might not necessarily recognize just yet. It may be later on that you recognize it, or it may be something that you realize from your past. Like, I think that it's hard to see something you're in right now, but sometimes we can look back and go, that was probably a cage I was in. Or, ooh, that was definitely a situation I can think of where somebody was trying to cage me, trying to keep me down. And I either did or did not follow that. I think it's hard to see it when you're in it, but it's a lot easier if you can look back. So sometimes we have to kind of look back on situations to answer that question. The third one is, what rebellions are you performing in order to feel in control? And the reason why I did that one was because she was talking about how she was bulimic, and that was her form of rebellion against whatever cage was being placed around her, even though she maybe not realize it at the time. That was her outward outburst. Like kids, they act out when they get mad, they don't keep it in. But I think when we start to get older, you learn to internalize that, and it will literally cause sickness in your body, which to her, it was the bulimia and, binge eating and then throwing up. So I know for me, like, rebellions, I could probably think of a few when I was younger. I was a little bit of a hellion kind of child, so I used to, cause all kinds of ruckus. I channel it a little bit better now that I'm older, but when I was younger, I was a little wild. I don't know about you guys. So what about you guys? Do you guys recognize any cages from your past or from your present, or anything that you feel like you rebelled because of something, or anything like that that comes to your mind? I mean, I'll get stories for days if you want me to. Go ahead, Amanda.
Okay, so which question are we on? What cages are you in right now?
Which cages or what rebellions were you experiencing, or do you remember?
So as far as like the cages, I put, and this might not sit well with everybody. Okay, so I apologize in advance. You don't know where I'm coming from. If you get upset, I'm sorry. Okay, but as far as the cages, motherhood is a cage of sorts to me. I love my children. I do. I love them so much. That being said, I have two boys, both still in diapers, and they both have autism. So that's one cage. I feel like capitalism is a big cage for all of us, especially as women, since we're the people with the pocketbooks, but we're also the ones who don't have a voice, so to speak. And then also a cage of self-doubt. And that comes to, as far as, how do I word that? The cage started, that's one of the older cages. That's one of the older ones, because I understood the bulimia. I've been bulimic before, but that's something that was easy to stop because stomach acids really hurt coming up. Anybody who's drank and learned how much they can drink, which I did that too, no, that's not pleasant to throw up. So yeah, I went the other way with that. Instead of bulimia, I went to anorexia as a form of rebellion, but it was also a form of conformity too, as far as caging myself. But in doing all those things, the self-doubt is in part because when you allow things to happen in your life, sometimes it's difficult. You should be looking out for yourself. And when you allow things to happen, how can you trust yourself?
Yeah.
Because you allowed it to happen. You know, you allowed the cage. Sorry.
Don't
You
be
allowed the cage to
sorry.
be shut. Let me take my glasses off. I can't see your faces. When you allow yourself to be caged and you look back and you see the cage, it just causes more of that. So, and I used to be really, really vibrant, really, really outgoing, and really happy. And just different people, different voices that are still in my head, just did what they could to kind of try to make me less, make me not stand out like a sore thumb, so to speak, not be so wild and so crazy and so rebellious, because it was really rebellion against conformity, against rules that I didn't understand. If you're going to tell me I can't go out, tell me why. If you're going to tell me that the rules are different for me than they are for my brothers, tell me why. If you can give me a logical reason, if you tell me I have to wear shoes to the park, tell me why. Explain to me why I have to do that, and I'm more than happy to comply. If you give me a valid, logical reason why you're asking me to do that, sure. What, baby? Oh, yeah, I see. Again, motherhood is one of those cages, like I said. But yeah, I put like my cages, one of the cages is self-doubt, because it causes a circle like to go around that cage too. Like there's extra like chicken wire around it too. So that's what I put down. That's what I put down. And I know that, like, as far as, you know, what I was before, I mean, I'm not as sweet as I used to be.
Yeah.
I can say that life has had its way. I'm not near as nice, and I'm still a nice person, but I used to be a lot nicer. So that's what I put down for those. As far as rebellions, I still let myself be angry with myself. I still let myself get angry at people for saying things to me. I still take it personally when family members say things to me. So that rebellion is really against myself. I can't, they don't know, they don't care. So
Yeah.
that's what I got.
I love that. Motherhood is a cage. It really is. And it's not necessarily means that it's a bad thing all the time. Like you said, we love our children, but man, it is like a lifelong sentence. Is sometimes how I feel about it. And even though like we love our kids, they're amazing, they do amazing things, they teach us so many things. But along with that joy, you have to have the equal, you know, demise of it as well. And it is hard sometimes. And I
They're
think it's
wild.
been
They're
harder.
wild. They're wild. Little boys are wild,
Oh,
Jenny.
they're crazy. Oh, I
You
know. I
got
only got
boys.
one girl.
Everybody who's got a child knows they're wild. Everybody, you know that there are moments where you cannot, they're like wild animals. So you think about caging them. You literally think about putting them in a cage. So
Right. That we almost like we want to because they're so wild, but it's almost like that's the point. They're supposed to be wild, you know, but we would just keep wanting to tame them and keep them caged because we just want to break, you know. Like, oh, here, just do this so I can like at least get 30 minutes. And then you think of this book and you're like, dang it, did I just cage you? Ah. It's really hard. It's definitely tricky, but I like her perspective on some things for men and women, for boys and girls. Later on in the book, you'll kind of see them. Or she even talks about like the shampoo, you know, like how the difference in the wording, the word choice that we give little boy, you know, young men versus young girls. Like, why do we do that? We've continued to separate and separate and separate when you got to ask yourself, is that purposeful anymore? Like, is that necessary anymore? Why do we keep the separation of the genders and like, what is all of that for? You know, when you really start to ask yourself beyond anything that you believe, what's it for? You know, and I sometimes that's what I've just been asking myself, like, why are they wording that like that? Why is that wrote like that? Why is it that color? Like, and I get sometimes I'm like, oh, and the answer in marketing is, oh, well, women seem to be more attracted because we're told that we're supposed to be more attracted to that. And you grow up believing that we're supposed to be more attracted to pink when maybe that's not at all. You know, if we would have had the choice from our free will from when we were younger, would it have been different? You know, I think even Chelsea kind of said that, is like, man, if I wouldn't have listened to them, what would I have chose? You know, and it's almost frustrating, isn't it? Like,
Well, like Jenny, what you were saying with the advertisements on the shampoo bottles, you know, like Derek was just telling me, because, you know, he's listening in on the conversation. He's like, my favorite color is purple. And you know, my daughter's favorite color is blue. And it's like, you can like and love whatever you want, and that should be okay. Like, you know, if I, you know, one of my sons came to me and was like, hey mom, I like this pretty fluffy thing, and I'd be like, okay, that's cool, like I like it too, so it's good. I don't know, I just feel like there's so much pressure for kids to be a certain way in those cages, you know. And it's nice to have them be able to just be whatever they want to be.
I think it's going to take us years to probably break down all of these cages that we place and all these gender norms and roles and what's what's ladylike and what little boys are supposed to like trucks and, you know, tools, and girls are supposed to like dolls and, you know, all of that stuff. It's like, we have to break all of that stuff down, because just like, does it, like, what if your son loves dolls, and what if he is going to grow up to be a doctor because he sat and had all these dolls, and like, or maybe he wants to be a makeup artist, who knows? Go ahead, Bethany.
I am a teacher, and I have a boy and a little girl in my class that have the same pair of shoes, and traditionally speaking, they were marketed to boys. They're marketed to boys in the store. And my little boy was like, hey, we have the same shoes. And she goes, yeah, aren't they so comfortable? And he was like, yeah, but those are boy shoes. And she was like, no, they're not. And I'm listening very intently in this conversation to see if I need to chime in to, because it's not the first time. Like, I have boys that like the color purple, and the other boys are like, well, that's not a girl, that's so girl color. And so before, I'm like, nope, it's just a color. Like, it doesn't have a gender. It's just a color. But she handled it herself. She goes, they're just shoes. And it was one of those where I was like, yes, girl. And he sat there like staring at her, and he was like, oh, cool, I'm gonna go play. Like, he had been told that these were boys' shoes, or he saw them in the boys section, but she was just like, no, they're just shoes. Like, that's it. That's all that there is to it. It doesn't matter if they're black, pink, purple, sparkly. Like, it's just something I wear on my feet and they're comfortable. So I was like, and I had like just started reading this book, and that happened. It was like, okay, that's really cool.
And imagine those little conversations like that happening all over the world. You know, little conversations where, and some don't end so casually, you know, so, oh, okay, matter of fact, you know, and it's just so, and then we have to back up, like, okay, so where did the little boy, and no offense to the parents of the little boy, but what did they say, you know, and what was their taming to believe that they needed to tell their son that these little shoes were for boys, you know? And it's like, it's not that they're wrong, it's not that they're in the wrong, they just don't know that, like, we don't need to do that, you know, we don't have to do that. It doesn't matter whether they're little boys or little girls, they're size 6, that's it, And so once we really start to step back from it all, so for me, I don't know if you guys know my background. So I have a communications degree, but I have a women and gender studies minor. So all of my communications classes and all my classes through college were all women and gender studies. So I have a lot of background on like gender roles and gender norms and like how society has placed like literally this book is like my college coming back to me almost, in a way that I'm like, oh, it is so refreshing to get this back in my life because I feel like I've been a little disconnected from it. And when I was in college, like literally this is all we did. We read books and then we'd come to class, discuss them, write papers, write essays about it. And like that was literally my whole college experience. I didn't take like tests and stuff like that. We always wrote papers and you always had to break down like things like this. And so this is like my favorite stuff to talk about is like gender norms, breaking down gender norms and all of that stuff. So hopefully you guys are ready for all this book. Bethany, I also was reading your comment over here. If you guys could jump over to the chat. And so it says, I put myself in a teacher cage. Oh, how crazy is that to think about the roles that we play in our society, of like what I'm supposed to, well, I know that you had told us before about the crop tops of like, oh, I can't wear that because I'm a teacher and I can't, show my stomach. And it's like, wait, why does that have anything to do with your style of teaching or the way that you're teaching or what's coming out of your mouth, And it's interesting, the cages we place around ourselves, and I love to see you break free from that. It's super exciting. And then the rebellions. Yeah. Felt sick. I don't know if you guys are reading this. So that's a really interesting one too. So you guys got to pop over to the chat and read that. Okay, Michaela. Oh, no worries, Michaela. We're still rocking and rolling. Hopefully you're keeping up with us. I hate that though. I hate when my internet's being shoddy. It's like the worst. You're like, no, I just want to listen. Okay, so I'm going to move on to our second phase. We'll be done. We'll probably wrap up about 9 o'clock. So we'll talk for another 15 minutes or so about the second section. So I'm going to go over the questions. If you have one that kind of sparked your interest or you really want to talk about, or there was a quote in the book that you really want to talk about, just speak up, guys. Okay. So for section 2, one of my questions was there a time you wanted to be golden? What were you willing to do to be it? I actually have kind of a funny little story that I want to tell you guys about with this one. It's very quick, but so I was messaging somebody and I was telling them about, I said, I've made the joke, I'm kind of small town famous because literally everybody in my hometown knows me. They reckon I can barely walk through Walmart. Like everybody knows my mom at the bank. Like I just grew up. And I was explaining this. I go, and I was a cheerleader in high school. So this is literally the conversation. And they go, oh. And I went, somehow this book like registered to me. I go, oh my God, I think they just registered me as golden. I literally was like, I think that just happened. It was the weirdest thing because I was really just talking about how everybody knows me in my hometown because of who, what I've done. I've worked uptown at a lot of local places. My mom works at the bank. I used to be a cheerleader in high school. Just slipped that in there. And they go, oh, okay. And I was like, oh, I don't like it. I want to take that back. I wanted to take it back so quickly that I had even dropped that knowledge because of their response to it. So apparently, I guess, or I would assume that was a golden moment for me. I don't know if you guys have had anything ever happen like that to you, but I'm going to read through the questions too, and then we'll go back. Are you stealing all my water? You're literally chugging my water. He just checked all my water. Go get your own, dude. Excuse you. Scoot.
Sorry.
Okay. Go. Okay, so what decisions, if any, are you avoiding? That's kind of one that might take you a little bit of time to figure out. Are you living hungry? Oh, think of that story of those little girls that she told when they looked at each other to decide whether they were hungry. The guy said, "Nope, I'm not hungry." The girls looked at each other to decide, are we hungry? Can we eat here? And it was like, I know that feeling. I know that exact feeling of asking. I am in a meeting. You need to go ask your grandma. Yes, go. Bye. Okay. Sorry, you guys will get used to that. A lot of you guys already know about Derek, but so are you living hungry? Where are you not speaking up and allowing yourself to starve because of scared of other people or what they'll think or what they'll say or whatever it is? Are you choosing to suffer rather than open the door? That is in reference to the yoga one that she talks about, where the girl is like dying in this hot yoga class, right? About to pass out, won't leave the room because someone told her not to, and the door isn't even locked. So who's out there going, you just can't do this, and you're listening when it could be just as easy to ignore, you know? So I think that one's really interesting. I love her short stories. I love the way that they're like punchline at the end, and you're like, oh, it just kind of hits you a little bit. Okay. What dragons live inside of you that need to be unleashed? And that's in reference to that snow globe that she talks about, that she gets down off the shelf every once in a while. And it's just sitting there waiting to be shaken up and released. Like, what is inside of you that is just waiting for you to just shake up and release? The next one is, what lies or stories are you telling yourself to keep yourself in a cage as well? I know for myself, I lied to myself for many years of a cage I was in that I needed to be released from. And it took literally life shattering situations to happen all at the same time for me to actually leave that situation. It took like the cage to be ripped apart for me to even realize what I was in. And sometimes it takes that, you guys. Sometimes we don't even realize the cage that we're in until we're out of it. And you look back and you go, whoa, that was a hefty cage I was in. So you might not even know it right now. You might not even realize it. Or maybe you do and you're afraid to even admit it. Because if I look back, there's probably plenty of moments I knew that I was in a cage, and I chose to ignore it, and I continued to lie to myself, and I continued to tell myself, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, until it just wasn't fine anymore. And I was tired of fine. I was tired of fine. And so I think that's just really interesting to look back on. Sometimes we might need to look back because we don't realize what we're in right now. But if we look back and we're honest with ourselves of that truth, a lot of times that can point us in a direction of where we're at now. Wow, if I would have listened then, maybe that would affect me differently now. So how can I use that knowledge now to be different in the future? Okay, and then the last one is, where are you? Where are you? Are you present? Are you checked out? Are you in limbo land? Like, you're not making decisions. You're not saying yes, but you're not saying no. And so you're just riding out limbo land, but it's causing anxiety. It's causing depression. It's causing things to build up inside of you. Where are you every day? And what are you doing? Are you autopilot? Or are you present? Are you making your own decisions, or are you going with the flow? Trust me, I've gone with the flow. It's great for a while. And then there's a point where you realize that decisions are going right past you. And you're no longer making decisions for yourself. And that's frustrating. I don't want you guys to get to that point. Or if you are there, well, let's acknowledge it and fix it and change it and really become present in our lives. I want to pop over to the chat really quick here, you guys, because I know that there's some girls that have said some stuff. Okay. Christy, I don't speak up often. Yes, girl, I'm telling you, when I think back on like how my college, okay, you guys, I only started smoking cigarettes because I would go outside with my girlfriends in college. Because I didn't want to sit inside by myself. So I would go outside with them. And then by the time I was out there with them, I was like, well, I'm out here with you guys. I might as well just start smoking. And that's how I literally picked up the habit of smoking, is going with the flow, doing what other girls were doing, looking at them going, well, what are you doing? Oh, okay, I'll do that too. Because there's Christy had put in the comment, when like girls look at each other to see if we're hungry, is like, I think of like all the habits I picked up just by literally looking at my friends going, well, what are you doing? Oh, okay, I'll do that too. And instead of asking myself, did I want to start smoking cigarettes? Because if you would have asked me, I would have said no, I don't want to start smoking cigarettes. But I did, because I was going with the flow and I was doing what my friends did. And I did it for too many years. I mean, thank God I don't smoke anymore. I haven't smoked a cigarette in probably 6 years or so. But just, I think back on that habit I picked up just because of the situations I was in. So it's just so interesting. Okay. Do you realize I didn't have to do with my older kid? Yeah, girl, I feel like that could probably be a relief. Elika, I'm listening. Okay, I resonate with so much of what she says. It's crazy to realize so many of us have similar thoughts and feels about all of this. Yes, it is crazy to actually like have a full conversation with other women and we're all going, yeah. Because Elika and I talked about this over the weekend. And so misogyny, right? Our society, and what we're really, really built off of, right? Which is men making decisions for us, has literally designed our society to keep us home by ourselves. Okay. We don't congregate as women much anymore. You know, that was really the push for it, was for us to not congregate with each other, because they knew if we would get into masses that we would start talking and going, wait, what? This doesn't feel right. And so you guys got to think of it like that. Like, why did they want to keep us home and alone when we are with each other? We're so powerful. We're such a force, and we are so smart as a collective unit. And I think that we need to recognize that sometimes. And when you have conversations like this and you see heads nodding and you see, I could see you guys thinking, I can see you guys processing, and I know that it's going to bleed over. And then I always think of that ripple effect, right? So now that we know, now that we have planted that seed in our own minds, now anybody we interact with, our kids, our families, our jobs, whoever we're interacting with, now we're going to be thinking twice about who, how, what we say, how we're going to say it, who we're talking to. All of those things are going to start to change in us. And now we can start projecting that different life, that different ability onto those people around us. And so I really like that we're congregating and really kind of being like, yeah. I know that like there was never, so I don't know if you guys know, there was never like really an official bra burning. Back in the day, it was just kind of like something that they said, but I'm totally in for some bra burning if you guys are down. 2021. And so that's why things like the Women's March and stuff like that have made such history, because women weren't really congregating. We were kept at home, stay in your kitchen, feed the kids, make sure you look good for when our men came home. You know, that was the basis of it. And it's interesting to break free of that and then ask ourselves, okay, now what do I want? Maybe I do still want to have kids. Maybe I do still want to have a husband, right? But we both do dishes, or we both vacuum, or we both are out of the house working, or maybe he stays home and I'm working out of the house. Like, we can switch up the mix and do what's best for us rather than doing what we think we're supposed to be doing. And maybe your life doesn't change, or maybe you still are doing, you know, the same thing. Maybe you're still at home taking care of the kids, but there's a difference in by choice and by force, right? Like, I love working from home. I don't want to work anywhere in a building. So like, I have no problem being at home all day, but it's by choice. It's because I love to work from home. I love when people come to me rather than I go to them. It's just more of a personal feeling, but it's by choice rather than by force. Right. And so I think that's where we have to start asking ourselves, do I feel like I have to do this, or do I want to do this? Maybe the next book, there's a book, so it's called F-No. I don't know if there's any kids around, but if you haven't read that one, put that on your list to read next, because that was super empowering for me too. And it's talking about how to say no more often, to leave space for the yes. Okay, so you're saying, no, I don't want to go to that birthday party, because yes, I love to sit on my couch and watch TV or do a movie night with the family. So it's saying no to the things that you don't want to do, so you can then say yes to the things that actually you do want to do. And it's a really empowering book also. It just kind of really lets you know it's okay to say no. And which I think us as women, that's hard, right? We say yes way too often. We apologize way too often, right? We literally apologize for existing sometimes. Have you ever bumped into somebody and you say sorry? Like, I'm sorry for existing at the same time as you? Like, we don't need to apologize for that. And so it's just, I love this book because it's just bringing back all of these things that I've known and have felt, and it's giving me a purpose and a reason and validation for them. So I don't know if that's what you guys are getting. It's like, maybe you've had these thoughts before. Maybe you've questioned some things before, or maybe you don't understand why you're so unhappy. Maybe you're like, man, I have a great family. I have my kids. I have a great job. Why am I so unhappy? And maybe you need to ask that too. Like, where are you and what's going on, so we can begin to break it down. Okay. But I think mostly we just got to be honest with ourselves. Yeah. Does anybody else have any thoughts on section 2, or like any fun quotes or anything that was just like, oh, I love it? We feel like a couple more minutes here. Oh, the polar bears. Anybody? I'm like, the polar bears.
The polar bears, yes, because she's right. First, it's the polar bears. What's to stop them from coming from us next? Case in point, look around you. Just case in point, look around you today. I mean, and like you're saying, women being kept apart. You know, we have strength in numbers. And I mean, it's just, yeah, the polar bears, man. The polar bears. The polar bears. Oh,
It was powerful. And I'm like, by the end of that little section, I was just like, oh, Tish, I love her.
crying so much through this book. And I mean, one of the things I liked is how she spun what her husband did, his actions. She spun it. She's like, wait a second, I'm gonna write my story. Like, no, you are not ruining me. You're not ruining my story. She spun it. She's like, I'm gonna spin it to win it. She's writing her own story. It's just awesome. It's just awesome. She doesn't remember it. She just writes the stories. I've got so much highlighted through here. I'm looking to see if there's anything that just pops out that I just really, really want to share. Because everything she said resonated, just like Elika was saying, like so much of this book resonated, so much of it did. And it's just, it's drawing your attention to life. And like it's very eye-opening, very, very eye-opening. I feel so bad. I feel so good that there are so many people. I don't feel as crazy knowing that other women feel similarly, because that's one of the cages. They tell you you're being crazy for thinking certain ways or for feeling certain. You're crazy. You're just, there's nothing wrong with you. Oh, you'll be fine. It's okay. No, everybody does this. Everybody's been doing this for years. Of course, it's the right thing to do. When in fact, no, my body's telling me that's not the right thing for me to do. What? What? What?
Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
Yes. Like, oh yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I love I even just opened up to page like 21, and it's like, it's the hard, okay, it's not the hard decisions that mess up our kids. It's indecisions. Your kids need to know which way is going, which way this is going to go. Like, I think that's so important too, of just being decisive. It's not about which is right or wrong or which one. It's just about choosing and teaching our next generation, our kids, to choose and to trust their choice. And I always feel like the anxiety comes when you're in indecision, right? When you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know. That's when the anxiety starts to come. But the moment you choose, now you have just a game plan, right? Now you can just making actions like, okay, this is what I choose and this is what I'm going for. All in, that's what I choose. Now I can just start doing actions and start making momentum. And it's not about what's right. It's about going, choosing, making those decisions. I just thought that was like a really big kind of little nugget of info she just dropped in there. I was like,
one
dang.
more thing too is I just, since you turned to a specific page, one page that really just jumped out is on page 46. She talks about again where her boiling point was, but at the end, towards the middle of the page, she says, when I was a child, I felt what I needed to feel and I followed my gut and I planned only from my imagination. I was wild until I was tamed by shame.
Yeah.
I think that's a big taming factor. And I think that gets used in this misogynistic culture to help put that cage, help put those fine little nails in that cage to keep us in there, is that shame. The shame for being a woman, for growing, for changing, for changing our minds. You know, like the song, it's my prerogative. It's my prerogative. I mean, when we say it, we got an attitude, but when a man says it, it's being a man.
Right.
I mean, what's good for the goose should be good for the gander, right? I've never been cool with the double standard. You could ask my mama. Like, I argued with her when I was like 7 years old. I'm like, why does he not have to do it? Why do I have to clean the bathroom? Why can't you make him do it? Why does he never have to clean anything? Why do I have to do all the cleaning? He uses the bathroom too. He makes more of a mess than I do. Why do I have to clean up after him? Talking about my little brother. Like, and then he went in there, and this is proof in point, because we also, you're not and I'm not, but the bar was set lower for guys. The bar just seems to be lower for them. My little brother goes into the bathroom to clean the tub. He leaves dirty footprints all through the thing. I had to go in there and clean up after him anyways, because he did a half-ass job. Like, he didn't want to do it. So he did a poor job so he wouldn't have to do it again. Had I done that, I would have got spanked and I would have still had to do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's
crazy.
It's wild, but yeah, no, it's that tame by shame and then just still being in there. Because we're all still in there. You're still there, but yeah, you were golden. I remember your hair was golden too. Your hair was golden too. Like, and you were small town famous. I was small town infamous. Like, everybody knew who I was, but I was silver while you were gold. Like, I was shiny, but not, I was a cheerleader in junior high, but only because there was a yes program, not because I could do a cartwheel, not because I was popular, but you know, I was not because I was tall either.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things got stifled out because of the limitations that were pointed out to me.
Yeah.
You know,
and
I
we
wanted to
believed
be
them because we didn't know any different. You're like,
No,
okay. I guess I
wanted to
can't
be
do
model
that,
when I was a kid, and I was told, oh, models are 5'8" or taller. I'm like, oh, well, I guess I can't do that.
right?
That's
And we
there.
just
There,
listen.
there was the ceiling. There was the ceiling right there.
Yep.
So tangent, sorry.
Interesting. Girls, I could talk about this all freaking night. But we will put a cap on it for that. Okay, so the next section you guys will want to read, which starts this week. Let's see. So the first one is, so now we need to read 63 through 80. Is that right? Or I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. September 6th. Okay, pages 49 through 62. Okay. So that will be your next section. So you want to read that this week. Take your time, make notes, underline, like do it. Like if you're listening to an audiobook, have a notebook beside you just so you can like jot down things that she said. If you are reading hard copy, make sure you're making notes or writing in it, scratching it, whatever, highlight. Like this is the time for you to dig deep, not just read. I'm talking ingest and ask questions. Okay. That's what a book club is all about, is really diving deep into the material and asking yourself how it makes you feel. How does it make you think? What does it make you do afterwards? Do you walk a little taller when you read? Do you seem a little bit happier? Like, are you thinking of things differently? These are all stuff that you need to pay attention to while you're reading this book and untaming yourself. Oh, okay. I'd love it if you guys have your books. Does anybody have a book also? You just like hold it up. I'd love to get a picture if you guys are okay with that. Of us all holding our book. Yeah. Okay. Oh, look at everybody. Cool. 1, 2, 3. Too cute. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming this evening. I appreciate it. We won't meet next Monday, but the following Monday. So every other Monday we will meet, and it'll be at 6 p.m. the following Monday, because I also have a full moon gathering. I'd love to see all you guys there too. So that'll be a big night for discussion and energy and all the good things. All right, ladies, thank you so much. Go get out of your cages, unleash yourself. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay. All right. Bye.